Before kingdoms rose, before beasts ruled, there was a man who saw it all. They took his home, they shattered his temple, they dragged him away with chains and silence. But he carried something they could not break, a fire born not of flesh, but of God. They renamed him, they re-educated him, they fed him from royal tables, but he remembered who he was. In the city of idols, he refused to kneel. In the palace of sorcery, he did not speak their lies. He learned their language, but kept his own truth. He wore their robes, but bore a different spirit. Among the learned, he was set apart. Some kneel to survive, others burn to stand. He spoke what others feared. He saw what others denied. In the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem and besieged it. The Lord gave Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand with part of the vessels of God's house, and he carried them into the land of Shinar, to the house of his God. He brought the vessels into the treasure house of his God. The king spoke to Ashpenaz, the master of his eunuchs, that he should bring in some of the children of Israel, even of the royal offspring and of the nobles, youths in whom was no defect, but well-favored, skillful in all wisdom, endowed with knowledge, understanding science, and such as had ability to serve in the king's palace, and that he should teach them the learning and the language of the Chaldeans. The king appointed for them a daily portion of the king's delicacies and of the wine which he drank, and that they should be nourished 3 years, that at its end they should serve before the king. Now among these were of the children of Judah, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. The prince of the eunuchs gave names to them. To Daniel he gave the name Belteshazzar, and to Hananiah Shadrach, and to Mishael Meshach, and to Azariah Abednego. But Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with the king's delicacies, nor with the wine which he drank. Therefore he requested of the prince of the eunuchs that he might not defile himself. Now God made Daniel find kindness and compassion in the sight of the prince of the eunuchs. The prince of the eunuchs said to Daniel, I fear my lord the king, who has appointed your food and your drink, for why should he see your faces worse looking than the youths who are of your own age? Then you would endanger my head with the king. Then Daniel said to the steward whom the prince of the eunuchs had appointed over Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, test your servants, I beg you, 10 days, and let them give us vegetables to eat and water to drink. Then let our faces be examined before you and the face of the youths who eat of the king's delicacies, and as you see, deal with your servants. So he listened to them in this matter and tested them for 10 days. At the end of 10 days, their faces appeared fairer and fatter in flesh than all the youths who ate of the king's delicacies. So the steward took away their delicacies and the wine that they were given to drink, and gave them vegetables. Now as for these 4 youths, God gave them knowledge and skill in all learning and wisdom. Daniel had understanding in all visions and dreams. At the end of the days which the king had appointed for bringing them in, the prince of the eunuchs brought them in before Nebuchadnezzar. The king talked with them, and among them all none was found like Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Therefore they served before the king. In every matter of wisdom and understanding concerning which the king inquired of them, he found them 10 times better than all the magicians and enchanters who were in all his realm. Daniel continued even to the 1st year of King Cyrus. In the 2nd year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuchadnezzar dreamed dreams, and his spirit was troubled, and his sleep went from him. Then the king commanded the magicians, the enchanters, the sorcerers, and the Chaldeans to tell the king his dreams. So they came in and stood before the king. The king said to them, I have dreamed a dream, and my spirit is troubled to know the dream. Then the Chaldeans spoke to the king in the Syrian language. "O king, live forever. Tell your servants the dream, and we will show the interpretation." The king answered the Chaldeans, "The thing has gone from me. If you don't make known to me the dream and its interpretation, you will be cut in pieces, and your houses will be made a dunghill. But if you show the dream and its interpretation, you will receive from me gifts, rewards, and great honor. Therefore show me the dream and its interpretation." They answered the second time and said, "Let the king tell his servants the dream, and we will show the interpretation." The king answered, "I know of a certainty that you are trying to gain time, because you see the thing has gone from me. But if you don't make known to me the dream, there is but one decree for you. For you have prepared lying and corrupt words to speak before me until the time is changed. Therefore tell me the dream, and I will know that you can show me its interpretation." The Chaldeans answered before the king and said, "There is not a man on the earth who can show the king's matter, because no king, lord, or ruler has asked such a thing of any magician, enchanter, or Chaldean. It is a rare thing that the king requires, and there is no other who can show it before the king except the gods, whose dwelling is not with flesh." Because of this, the king was angry and very furious, and commanded that all the wise men of Babylon be destroyed. So the decree went out, and the wise men were to be slain. They sought Daniel and his companions to be slain. Then Daniel returned answer with counsel and prudence to Arioch, the captain of the king's guard, who had gone out to kill the wise men of Babylon. He answered Arioch, the king's captain, "Why is the decree so urgent from the king?" Then Arioch made the thing known to Daniel. Daniel went in and requested of the king that he would give him time, that he might show the king the interpretation. Then Daniel went to his house and made the thing known to Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, his companions, that they would desire mercies of the God of heaven concerning this secret, so that Daniel and his companions would not perish with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. Then the secret was revealed to Daniel in a vision of the night. Then Daniel blessed the God of heaven. Daniel answered, "Blessed be the name of God forever and ever, for wisdom and might are his. He changes the times and the seasons. He removes kings and sets up kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who have understanding. He reveals the deep and secret things. He knows what is in the darkness, and the light dwells with him. I thank you and praise you, you God of my fathers, who have given me wisdom and might, and have now made known to me what we desired of you, for you have made known to us the king's matter." Therefore Daniel went in to Arioch, whom the king had appointed to destroy the wise men of Babylon. He went and said this to him, "Don't destroy the wise men of Babylon. Bring me in before the king, and I will show to the king the interpretation." Then Arioch brought in Daniel before the king in haste, and said this to him, "I have found a man of the children of the captivity of Judah, who will make known to the king the interpretation." The king answered Daniel, whose name was Belteshazzar, "Are you able to make known to me the dream which I have seen and its interpretation?" Daniel answered before the king and said, "The secret which the king has demanded can't be shown to the king by wise men, enchanters, magicians, or soothsayers. But there is a God in heaven who reveals secrets, and he has made known to the king Nebuchadnezzar what will be in the latter days. Your dream and the visions of your head on your bed are these. As for you, O king, your thoughts came on your bed about what would happen hereafter, and he who reveals secrets has made known to you what will happen. But as for me, this secret is not revealed to me for any wisdom that I have more than any living, but to the intent that the interpretation may be made known to the king, and that you may know the thoughts of your heart. You, O king, saw and behold a great image. This image, which was mighty, and whose brightness was excellent, stood before you, and its appearance was terrifying. As for this image, its head was of fine gold, its chest and its arms of silver, its belly and its thighs of bronze, its legs of iron, its feet part of iron and part of clay. You saw until a stone was cut out without hands, which struck the image on its feet that were of iron and clay, and broke them in pieces. Then the iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver and the gold were broken in pieces together and became like the chaff of the summer threshing floors. The wind carried them away so that no place was found for them. The stone that struck the image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. This is the dream, and we will tell its interpretation before the king. You, O king, are King of kings, to whom the God of heaven has given the kingdom, the power, the strength, and the glory. Wherever the children of men dwell, he has given the animals of the field and the birds of the sky into your hand, and has made you to rule over them all. You are the head of gold. After you, another kingdom will arise that is inferior to you, and another third kingdom of bronze, which will rule over all the earth. The fourth kingdom will be strong as iron, because iron breaks in pieces and subdues all things. And as iron crushes all these, it will break in pieces and crush. Whereas you saw the feet and toes, part of potter's clay and part of iron, it will be a divided kingdom. But there will be in it the strength of the iron, because you saw the iron mixed with miry clay. As the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom will be partly strong and partly brittle. Whereas you saw the iron mixed with miry clay, they will mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they won't cling to one another, even as iron doesn't mix with clay. In the days of those kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom which will never be destroyed, nor will its sovereignty be left to another people. But it will break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it will stand forever, because you saw that a stone was cut out of the mountain without hands, and that it broke in pieces the iron, the bronze, the clay, the silver, and the gold. The great God has made known to the king what will happen hereafter. The dream is certain, and its interpretation sure. Then King Nebuchadnezzar fell on his face, worshipped Daniel, and commanded that they should offer an offering and sweet odors to him. The king answered Daniel and said, "Of a truth your God is the God of gods and the Lord of kings, and a revealer of secrets, since you have been able to reveal this secret." Then the king made Daniel great, and gave him many great gifts, and made him ruler over the whole province of Babylon, and chief governor over all the wise men of Babylon. Daniel requested of the king, and he appointed Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego over the affairs of the province of Babylon. But Daniel was in the king's gate. Nebuchadnezzar the king made an image of gold, whose height was 60 cubits, and its width 6 cubits. He set it up in the plain of Dura, in the province of Babylon. Then Nebuchadnezzar the king sent to gather together the local governors, the deputies and the governors, the judges, the treasurers, the counselors, the sheriffs, and all the rulers of the provinces to come to the dedication of the image which Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. Then the local governors, the deputies, and the governors, the judges, the treasurers, the counselors, the sheriffs, and all the rulers of the provinces were gathered together to the dedication of the image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. And they stood before the image that Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Then the herald cried aloud, "To you it is commanded, peoples, nations, and languages, that whenever you hear the sound of the horn, pipe, lyre, trigon, harp, dulcimer, and all kinds of music, you fall down and worship the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king has set up. Whoever doesn't fall down and worship shall be cast into the middle of a burning fiery furnace the same hour." Therefore at that time, when all the peoples heard the sound of the horn, pipe, lyre, trigon, harp, dulcimer, and all kinds of music, all the peoples, the nations, and the languages fell down and worshipped the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. Therefore at that time certain Chaldeans came near and brought accusation against the Jews. They answered Nebuchadnezzar the king, "O king, live forever. You, O king, have made a decree that every man who hears the sound of the horn, pipe, lyre, trigon, harp, dulcimer, and all kinds of music shall fall down and worship the golden image. And whoever doesn't fall down and worship shall be cast into the middle of a burning fiery furnace. There are certain Jews whom you have appointed over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men, O king, have not respected you. They don't serve your gods and don't worship the golden image which you have set up." Then Nebuchadnezzar, in rage and fury, commanded that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego be brought. Then they brought these men before the king. Nebuchadnezzar answered them, "Is it on purpose, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you don't serve my God, nor worship the golden image which I have set up? Now, if you are ready, whenever you hear the sound of the horn, pipe, lyre, trigon, harp, dulcimer, and all kinds of music, to fall down and worship the image which I have made, good. But if you don't worship, you shall be cast the same hour into the middle of a burning fiery furnace. Who is that God who will deliver you out of my hands?" Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered the king, "Nebuchadnezzar, we have no need to answer you in this matter. If it happens, our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of your hand, O king. But if not, let it be known to you, O king, that we will not serve your gods or worship the golden image which you have set up." Then Nebuchadnezzar was full of fury, and the expression on his face was changed against Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He spoke and commanded that they should heat the furnace 7 times more than it was usually heated. He commanded certain mighty men who were in his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and to cast them into the burning fiery furnace. Then these men were bound in their pants, their tunics, their mantles, and their other clothes, and were cast into the middle of the burning fiery furnace. Therefore, because the king's commandment was urgent and the furnace exceedingly hot, the flame of the fire killed those men who took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These 3 men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell down bound into the middle of the burning fiery furnace. Then Nebuchadnezzar the king was astonished and rose up in haste. He spoke and said to his counselors, "Didn't we cast 3 men bound into the middle of the fire?" They answered the king, "True, O king." He answered, "Look, I see 4 men loose, walking in the middle of the fire, and they are unharmed. The appearance of the 4th is like a son of the gods." Then Nebuchadnezzar came near to the mouth of the burning fiery furnace. He spoke and said, "Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, you servants of the Most High God, come out and come here." Then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came out of the middle of the fire. The local governors, the deputies, and the governors, and the king's counselors being gathered together, saw these men, that the fire had no power on their bodies, and the hair of their head wasn't singed. Their clothes weren't scorched, and the smell of fire wasn't on them. Nebuchadnezzar spoke and said, "Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel and delivered his servants who trusted in him. They have changed the king's word and have yielded their bodies that they might not serve nor worship any god except their own God. Therefore I make a decree that every people, nation, and language which speak anything evil against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego shall be cut in pieces, and their houses shall be made a dunghill, because there is no other God who is able to deliver like this." Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon. Nebuchadnezzar the king, to all the peoples, nations, and languages who dwell in all the earth, peace be multiplied to you. It has seemed good to me to show the signs and wonders that the Most High God has worked toward me. How great are his signs, how mighty are his wonders. His kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, his dominion is from generation to generation. I, Nebuchadnezzar, was at rest in my house and flourishing in my palace. I saw a dream which made me afraid, and the thoughts on my bed and the visions of my head troubled me. Therefore I made a decree to bring in all the wise men of Babylon before me, that they might make known to me the interpretation of the dream. Then the magicians, the enchanters, the Chaldeans, and the soothsayers came in, and I told the dream before them, but they didn't make known to me its interpretation. But at the last, Daniel came in before me, whose name was Belteshazzar, according to the name of my God, and in whom is the spirit of the holy gods. I told the dream before him, saying, Belteshazzar, master of the magicians, because I know that the spirit of the holy gods is in you, and no secret troubles you. Tell me the visions of my dream that I have seen, and its interpretation. These were the visions of my head on my bed. I saw, and behold, a tree in the middle of the earth, and its height was great. The tree grew and was strong. Its height reached to the sky, and its height to the end of all the earth. The leaves of it were beautiful, and it had much fruit. In it was food for all. The animals of the field had shade under it. The birds of the sky lived in its branches, and all flesh was fed from it. I saw in the visions of my head on my bed, and behold, a holy watcher came down from the sky. He cried aloud and said this, Cut down the tree and cut off its branches, shake off its leaves and scatter its fruit. Let the animals get away from under it and the birds from its branches. Nevertheless, leave the stump of its roots in the earth, even with a band of iron and brass, in the tender grass of the field. Let it be wet with the dew of the sky. Let his portion be with the animals in the grass of the earth. Let his heart be changed from man's, and let an animal's heart be given to him, and let 7 times pass over him. The sentence is by the decree of the watchers, and the demand by the word of the holy ones, to the intent that the living may know that the Most High rules in the kingdom of men and gives it to whomever he will, and sets up over it the lowest of men. This dream I, King Nebuchadnezzar, have seen. You, Belteshazzar, declare the interpretation, because all the wise men of my kingdom are not able to make known to me the interpretation. But you are able, for the spirit of the holy gods is in you. Then Daniel, whose name was Belteshazzar, was astonished for a while, and his thoughts troubled him. The king answered, Belteshazzar, don't let the dream or the interpretation trouble you. Belteshazzar answered, My lord, may the dream be for those who hate you, and its interpretation to your adversaries. The tree that you saw, which grew and was strong, whose height reached to the sky and its sight to all the earth, whose leaves were beautiful, and it had much fruit, and in it was food for all, under which the animals of the field lived, and on whose branches the birds of the sky had their habitation. It is you, O king, who have grown and become strong, for your greatness has grown and reaches to the sky, and your dominion to the end of the earth. Whereas the king saw a holy watcher coming down from the sky and saying, Cut down the tree and destroy it. Nevertheless, leave the stump of its roots in the earth with a band of iron and brass in the tender grass of the field, and let it be wet with the dew of the sky. Let his portion be with the animals of the field until 7 times pass over him. This is the interpretation, O king, and it is the decree of the Most High which has come on my lord the king. You shall be driven from men, and your dwelling shall be with the animals of the field. You shall be made to eat grass like oxen, and shall be wet with the dew of the sky. 7 times shall pass over you until you know that the Most High rules in the kingdom of men and gives it to whomever he will. Whereas it was commanded to leave the stump of the tree roots, your kingdom shall be sure to you after you know that heaven's rules. Therefore, O king, let my counsel be acceptable to you, and break off your sins by righteousness and your iniquities by showing mercy to the poor. Perhaps there may be a lengthening of your prosperity. All this came on the king Nebuchadnezzar. At the end of 12 months, he was walking in the royal palace of Babylon, The king spoke and said, "Is not this great Babylon, which I have built for the royal dwelling place by the might of my power and for the glory of my majesty?" While the word was in the king's mouth, a voice came from the sky saying, "O King Nebuchadnezzar, to you it is spoken. The kingdom has departed from you. You shall be driven from men, and your dwelling shall be with the animals of the field. You shall be made to eat grass like oxen. 7 times shall pass over you, until you know that the Most High rules in the kingdom of men and gives it to whomever he will." This was fulfilled the same hour on Nebuchadnezzar. He was driven from men and ate grass like oxen, and his body was wet with the dew of the sky, until his hair had grown like eagle's feathers, and his nails like birds' claws. At the end of the days, I, Nebuchadnezzar, lifted up my eyes to heaven, and my understanding returned to me, and I blessed the Most High, and I praised and honored him who lives forever, for his dominion is an everlasting dominion, and his kingdom from generation to generation. All the inhabitants of the earth are reputed as nothing. He does according to his will in the army of heaven and among the inhabitants of the earth, and no one can stay his hand or ask him, "What are you doing?" At the same time, my understanding returned to me, and for the glory of my kingdom, my majesty and brightness returned to me. My counselors and my lords sought me, and I was established in my kingdom, and excellent greatness was added to me. Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise and extol and honor the King of heaven, for all his works are truth and his ways justice. He is able to humble those who walk in pride. Belshazzar the king made a great feast for 1,000 of his lords, and drank wine before the 1,000. Belshazzar, while he tasted the wine, commanded that the golden and silver vessels which Nebuchadnezzar his father had taken out of the temple which was in Jerusalem be brought, that the king and his lords, his wives and his concubines might drink from them. Then they brought the golden vessels that were taken out of the temple of God's house which was at Jerusalem. And the king and his lords, his wives and his concubines drank from them. They drank wine and praised the gods of gold and of silver, of bronze, of iron, of wood, and of stone. In the same hour the fingers of a man's hand came out and wrote near the lampstand on the plaster of the wall of the king's palace, and the king saw the part of the hand that wrote. Then the king's face was changed in him, and his thoughts troubled him, and the joints of his thighs were loosened, and his knees struck one against another. The king cried aloud to bring in the enchanters, the Chaldeans, and the soothsayers. The king spoke and said to the wise men of Babylon, "Whoever reads this writing and shows me its interpretation shall be clothed with purple, and have a chain of gold around his neck, and shall be the 3rd ruler in the kingdom." Then all the king's wise men came in, but they could not read the writing or make known to the king its interpretation. Then King Belshazzar was greatly troubled, and his face was changed in him, and his lords were perplexed. The queen, by reason of the words of the king and his lords, came into the banquet house. The queen spoke and said, "O king, live forever. Don't let your thoughts trouble you, nor let your face be changed. There is a man in your kingdom in whom is the spirit of the holy gods. And in the days of your father, light, understanding, and wisdom, like the wisdom of the gods, were found in him. The king, Nebuchadnezzar your father, yes, the king your father, made him master of the magicians, enchanters, Chaldeans, and soothsayers. Because an excellent spirit, knowledge, and understanding, interpreting of dreams, showing of dark sentences, and dissolving of doubts, were found in the same Daniel, whom the king named Belteshazzar. Now let Daniel be called, and he will show the interpretation." Then Daniel was brought in before the king. The king spoke and said to Daniel, "Are you that Daniel who is of the children of the captivity of Judah, whom the king my father brought out of Judah? I have heard of you, that the spirit of the gods is in you, and that light, understanding, and excellent wisdom are found in you. Now the wise men, the enchanters, have been brought in before me, that they should read this writing and make known to me its interpretation. but they could not show the interpretation of the thing. But I have heard of you that you can give interpretations and dissolve doubts. Now if you can read the writing and make known to me its interpretation, you shall be clothed with purple and have a chain of gold around your neck, and shall be the third ruler in the kingdom." Then Daniel answered before the king, "Let your gifts be to yourself, and give your rewards to another. Nevertheless, I will read the writing to the king and make known to him the interpretation. To you, O king, the Most High God gave Nebuchadnezzar your father the kingdom and greatness and glory and majesty. Because of the greatness that he gave him, all the peoples, nations, and languages trembled and feared before him. He killed whom he wanted to, and he kept alive whom he wanted to. He raised up whom he wanted to, and he put down whom he wanted to. But when his heart was lifted up, and his mind hardened in pride, he was deposed from his kingly throne, and they took his glory from him. He was driven from the sons of men, and his heart was made like the animals. His dwelling was with the wild donkeys. He was fed with grass like oxen, and his body was wet with the dew of the sky, until he knew that the Most High God rules in the kingdom of men, and that he sets up over it whomever he will. You, his son, Belshazzar, have not humbled your heart, though you knew all this, but have lifted up yourself against the Lord of heaven. They have brought the vessels of his house before you and your lords, your wives, and your concubines have drunk wine from them. You have praised the gods of silver and gold, of bronze, iron, wood, and stone, which don't see, know, or hear, and you have not glorified the God in whose hand your breath is, and whose are all your ways. Then the part of the hand was sent from before him, and this writing was inscribed. This is the writing that was inscribed, Mene, Mene, Tekel, Upharsin. This is the interpretation of the thing, Mene. God has counted your kingdom and brought it to an end. Tekel, you are weighed in the balances and are found wanting. Peres, your kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and Persians. Then Belshazzar commanded, and they clothed Daniel with purple and put a chain of gold about his neck, and proclaimed concerning him that he should be the third ruler in the kingdom. In that night, Belshazzar the Chaldean king was slain. Darius the Mede received the kingdom, being about 62 years old. It pleased Darius to set over the kingdom 120 local governors, who should be throughout the whole kingdom, and over them 3 presidents, of whom Daniel was one, that these local governors might give account to them, and that the king should suffer no loss. Then this Daniel was distinguished above the presidents and the local governors, because an excellent spirit was in him, and the king planned to set him over the whole realm. Then the presidents and the local governors sought to find occasion against Daniel concerning the kingdom, but they could find no occasion or fault, because he was faithful. There wasn't any error or fault found in him. Then these men said, "We won't find any occasion against this Daniel unless we find it against him concerning the law of his God." Then these presidents and local governors assembled together to the king and said this to him, "King Darius, live forever. All the presidents of the kingdom, the deputies and the local governors, the counselors and the governors have consulted together to establish a royal statute and to make a strong decree that whoever asks a petition of any god or man for 30 days, except of you, O king, shall be cast into the den of lions. Now, O king, establish the decree and sign the writing, that it not be changed according to the law of the Medes and Persians, which doesn't alter." Therefore King Darius signed the writing and the decree. When Daniel knew that the writing was signed, he went into his house. Now his windows were open in his room toward Jerusalem, and he knelt on his knees 3 times a day and prayed and gave thanks before his God, as he did before. Then these men assembled together and found Daniel making petition and supplication before his God. Then they came near and spoke before the king concerning the king's decree. Haven't you signed a decree that every man who makes a petition to any god or man within 30 days, except to you, O king, shall be cast into the den of lions?" The king answered, "This thing is true according to the law of the Medes and Persians, which doesn't alter." Then they answered and said before the king, "That Daniel, who is of the children of the captivity of Judah, doesn't respect you, O king, or the decree that you have signed, but makes his petition 3 times a day." Then the king, when he heard these words, was very displeased, and set his heart on Daniel to deliver him. And he labored until the going down of the sun to rescue him. Then these men assembled together to the king, and said to the king, "Know, O king, that it is a law of the Medes and Persians that no decree nor statute which the king establishes may be changed." Then the king commanded, and they brought Daniel and cast him into the den of lions. The king spoke and said to Daniel, "Your God whom you serve continually, he will deliver you." A stone was brought and laid on the mouth of the den, and the king sealed it with his own signet and with the signet of his lords, that nothing might be changed concerning Daniel. Then the king went to his palace and passed the night fasting. No musical instruments were brought before him, and his sleep fled from him. Then the king arose very early in the morning and went in haste to the den of lions. When he came near to the den to Daniel, he cried with a troubled voice. The king spoke and said to Daniel, "Daniel, servant of the living God, is your God, whom you serve continually, able to deliver you from the lions?" Then Daniel said to the king, "O king, live forever. My God has sent his angel and has shut the lions' mouths, and they have not hurt me, because as before him innocence was found in me, and also before you, O king, I have done no harm." Then the king was exceedingly glad, and commanded that they should take Daniel up out of the den. So Daniel was taken up out of the den, and no kind of harm was found on him, because he had trusted in his God. The king commanded, and they brought those men who had accused Daniel, and they cast them into the den of lions, them, their children, and their wives. The lions mauled them and broke all their bones in pieces before they came to the bottom of the den. Then King Darius wrote to all the peoples, nations, and languages who dwell in all the earth, "Peace be multiplied to you. I make a decree that in all the dominion of my kingdom men tremble and fear before the God of Daniel. For he is the living God and steadfast forever. His kingdom is that which will not be destroyed. His dominion will be even to the end. He delivers and rescues. He works signs and wonders in heaven and in earth, who has delivered Daniel from the power of the lions." So this Daniel prospered in the reign of Darius and in the reign of Cyrus the Persian. In the 1st year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and visions of his head on his bed. Then he wrote the dream and told the sum of the matters. Daniel spoke and said, "I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the 4 winds of the sky broke out on the great sea. 4 great animals came up from the sea, different from one another. The first was like a lion and had eagle's wings. I saw until its wings were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth and made to stand on 2 feet as a man. A man's heart was given to it. Behold, there was another animal, a second like a bear. It was raised up on one side, and 3 ribs were in its mouth between its teeth. They said this to it, 'Arise, devour much flesh.' After this I saw, and behold, another like a leopard, which had on its back 4 wings of a bird. The animal also had 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th animal, awesome and powerful and exceedingly strong. It had great iron teeth. It devoured and broke in pieces, and stamped the residue with its feet. It was different from all the animals that were before it. It had 10 horns. I considered the horns, and behold, another horn came up among them, a little one, before which 3 of the first horns were plucked up by the roots. Behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking arrogant things. I watched until thrones were placed, and one who was ancient of days sat. His clothing was white as snow, and the hair of his head like pure wool. His throne was fiery flames, and its wheels burning fire. A fiery stream issued and came out from before him. Thousands of thousands ministered to him. 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The court was seated, and the books were opened. I watched at that time because of the voice of the arrogant words which the horns spoke. I watched even until the animal was slain, and its body destroyed, and it was given to be burned with fire. As for the rest of the animals, their dominion was taken away, yet their lives were prolonged for a season and a time. I saw in the night visions, and behold, there came with the clouds of the sky one like a son of man. He came even to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him near before him. Dominion was given him, and glory, and a kingdom, that all the peoples, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion, which will not pass away, and his kingdom that which will not be destroyed. As for me, Daniel, my spirit was grieved within my body, and the visions of my head troubled me. I came near to one of those who stood by, and asked him the truth concerning all this. So he told me and made me know the interpretation of the things. These great animals, which are four kings who will arise out of the earth. 18. But the saints of the Most High will receive the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever, even forever and ever. Then I desired to know the truth concerning the fourth animal, which was different from all of them, exceedingly terrible, whose teeth were of iron and its nails of bronze, which devoured, broke in pieces, and stamped the residue with its feet, and concerning the 10 horns that were on its head, and the other horn which came up, and before which 3 fell, even that horn that had eyes, and a mouth that spoke arrogant things, whose appearance was more stout than its fellows. I saw, and the same horn made war with the saints, and prevailed against them, until the Ancient of Days came, and judgment was given to the saints of the Most High, and the time came that the saints possessed the kingdom. So he said, the fourth animal will be a fourth kingdom on earth, which will be different from all the kingdoms, and will devour the whole earth, and will tread it down, and break it in pieces. As for the 10 horns, out of this kingdom 10 kings will arise, and another will arise after them. He will be different from the former, and he will put down 3 kings. He will speak words against the Most High, and will wear out the saints of the Most High. He will intend to change the times and the law, and they will be given into his hand until a time and times and half a time. But the judgment will be set, and they will take away his dominion, to consume and to destroy it to the end. The kingdom and the dominion and the greatness of the kingdoms under the whole sky will be given to the people of the saints of the Most High. His kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all dominions will serve and obey him. Here is the end of the matter. As for me, Daniel, my thoughts greatly troubled me, and my face turned pale, but I kept the matter in my heart. In the 3rd year of the reign of King Belshazzar, a vision appeared to me, even to me, Daniel, after that which appeared to me at the first. I saw the vision now. When I saw, I was in the citadel of Susa, which is in the province of Elam. I saw in the vision, and I was by the river Ulai. Then I lifted up my eyes and saw, and behold, a ram which had 2 horns stood before the river. The 2 horns were high, but one was higher than the other, and the higher came up last. I saw the ram pushing westward, northward, and southward. No animals could stand before him. There wasn't any who could deliver out of his hand, but he did according to his will and magnified himself. As I was considering, behold, a male goat came from the west over the surface of the whole earth, and didn't touch the ground. The goat had a notable horn between his eyes. He came to the ram who had the 2 horns, which I saw standing before the river, and ran on him in the fury of his power. I saw him come close to the ram, and he was moved with anger against him. He struck the ram and broke his 2 horns. There was no power in the ram to stand before him, but he cast him down to the ground and trampled on him. There was no one who could deliver the ram out of his hand. The male goat magnified himself exceedingly. When he was strong, the great horn was broken, and instead of it there came up 4 notable horns toward the 4 winds of the sky. Out of one of them came out a little horn, which grew exceedingly great toward the south, toward the east, and toward the glorious land. It grew great, even to the army of the sky, and it cast down some of the army and of the stars to the ground and trampled on them. Yes, it magnified itself, even to the prince of the army, and it took away from him the continual burnt offering. The place of his sanctuary was cast down. The army was given over to it, together with the continual burnt offering through disobedience. It cast down truth to the ground, and it did its pleasure and prospered. Then I heard a Holy One speaking. And another Holy One said to that certain one who spoke, "How long will the vision about the continual burnt offering and the disobedience that makes desolate, to give both the sanctuary and the army to be trodden under foot be?" He said to me, "To 2,300 evenings and mornings, then the sanctuary will be cleansed." When I, even I, Daniel, had seen the vision, I sought to understand it. Then behold, there stood before me someone with the appearance of a man. I heard a man's voice between the banks of the Ulai, which called and said, "Gabriel, make this man understand the vision." So he came near where I stood, and when he came I was frightened and fell on my face. But he said to me, "Understand, Son of Man, for the vision belongs to the time of the end." Now, as he was speaking with me, I fell into a deep sleep with my face toward the ground, but he touched me and set me upright. He said, "Behold, I will make you know what will be in the latter time of the indignation, for it belongs to the appointed time of the end. The ram which you saw, that had the 2 horns, they are the kings of Media and Persia. The rough male goat is the king of Greece. The great horn that is between his eyes is the first king. As for that which was broken, in the place where 4 stood up, 4 kingdoms will stand up out of the nation, but not with his power. In the latter time of their kingdom, when the transgressors have come to the full, a king of fierce face and understanding dark sentences will stand up. His power will be mighty, but not by his own power. He will destroy awesomely and will prosper and do his pleasure. He will destroy the mighty ones and the holy people. Through his policy, he will cause deceit to prosper in his hand. He will magnify himself in his heart, and he will destroy many in their security. He will also stand up against the Prince of Princes, but he will be broken without hand. The vision of the evenings and mornings which has been told is true, but seal up the vision, for it belongs to many days to come. I, Daniel, fainted and was sick for some days. Then I rose up and did the king's business. I wondered at the vision, but no one understood it. In the 1st year of Darius, the son of Ahasuerus, of the offspring of the Medes, who was made king over the realm of the Chaldeans, in the 1st year of his reign, I, Daniel, understood by the books the number of the years about which Yahweh's word came to Jeremiah the prophet for the accomplishing of the desolations of Jerusalem, even 70 years. I set my face to the Lord God to seek by prayer and petitions with fasting and sackcloth and ashes. I prayed to Yahweh my God and made confession and said, "O Lord, the great and dreadful God who keeps covenant and loving kindness with those who love him and keep his commandments, we have sinned and have dealt perversely and have done wickedly and have rebelled, even turning aside from your precepts and from your ordinances. We haven't listened to your servants the prophets, who spoke in your name to our kings, our princes, and our fathers, and to all the people of the land. Lord, righteousness belongs to you, but to us confusion of face, as it is today, to the men of Judah, and to the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and to all Israel, who are near and who are far off, through all the countries where you have driven them, because of their trespass, that they have trespassed against you. Lord, to us belongs confusion of face, to our kings, to our princes, and to our fathers, because we have sinned against you. To the Lord our God belong mercies and forgiveness, for we have rebelled against him. We haven't obeyed Yahweh, our God's voice, to walk in his laws, which he set before us by his servants, the prophets. Yes, all Israel have transgressed your law, turning aside that they should not obey your voice. Therefore the curse and the oath written in the law of Moses, the servant of God, has been poured out on us, for we have sinned against him. He has confirmed his words, which he spoke against us and against our judges who judged us, by bringing on us a great evil. For under the whole sky such has not been done as has been done to Jerusalem. As it is written in the law of Moses, all this evil has come on us, yet we have not entreated the favor of Yahweh our God, that we should turn from our iniquities and have discernment in your truth. Therefore Yahweh has watched over the evil and brought it on us. For Yahweh our God is righteous in all his works which he does, and we have not obeyed his voice. Now, Lord our God, who has brought your people out of the land of Egypt with a mighty hand, and has made yourself a name, as it is today, we have sinned. We have done wickedly. Lord, according to all your righteousness, please let your anger and your wrath be turned away from your city Jerusalem, your holy mountain. Because for our sins and for the iniquities of our fathers, Jerusalem and your people have become a reproach to all who are around us. Now therefore, our God, listen to the prayer of your servant and to his petitions, and cause your face to shine on your sanctuary that is desolate for the Lord's sake. My God, turn your ear and hear. Open your eyes and see our desolations and the city which is called by your name, for we do not present our petitions before you for our righteousness, but for your great mercy's sake. Lord, hear. Lord, forgive. Lord, listen and do. Don't defer for your own sake, my God, because your city and your people are called by your name. While I was speaking and praying and confessing my sin and the sin of my people Israel, and presenting my supplication before Yahweh, my God, for the holy mountain of my God, yes, while I was speaking in prayer, the man Gabriel, whom I had seen in the vision at the beginning, being caused to fly swiftly, touched me about the time of the evening offering. He instructed me and talked with me and said, Daniel, I have now come to give you wisdom and understanding. At the beginning of your petitions the commandment went out, and I have come to tell you, for you are greatly beloved. Therefore consider the matter and understand the vision. 70 weeks are decreed on your people and on your holy city, to finish disobedience, and to make an end of sins, and to make reconciliation for iniquity, and to bring in everlasting righteousness, and to seal up vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy. Know therefore and discern, that from the going out of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem to the Anointed One, the Prince will be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. It will be built again with street and moat, even in troubled times. After the 62 weeks, the Anointed One will be cut off and will have nothing. The people of the Prince who come will destroy the city and the sanctuary. Its end will be with a flood, and war will be even to the end. Desolations are determined. He will make a firm covenant with many for 1 week. In the middle of the week, he will cause the sacrifice and the offering to cease. On the wing of abominations will come one who makes desolate, and even to the full end, and that determined wrath will be poured out on the desolate. In the 3rd year of Cyrus, king of Persia, a message was revealed to Daniel, whose name was called Belteshazzar. The message was true, even a great warfare. He understood the message and had understanding of the vision. In those days, I, Daniel, was mourning 3 whole weeks. I ate no pleasant food. No meat or wine came into my mouth. I didn't anoint myself at all until 3 whole weeks were fulfilled. In the 24th day of the 1st month, as I was by the side of the great river, which is Hiddekel, I lifted up my eyes and looked, and behold, there was a man clothed in linen, whose waist was adorned with pure gold of Uphaz. His body also was like the beryl, and his face as the appearance of lightning, and his eyes as flaming torches, and his arms and his feet like burnished bronze in appearance, and the voice of his words like the voice of a multitude. I, Daniel, alone saw the vision. For the men who were with me didn't see the vision, but a great trembling fell on them, and they fled to hide themselves. So I was left alone, and saw this great vision. No strength remained in me, for my face grew deathly pale, and I retained no strength. Yet I heard the voice of his words. When I heard the voice of his words, then I fell into a deep sleep on my face, with my face toward the ground. Behold, a hand touched me, which set me on my knees and on the palms of my hands. He said to me, Daniel, you greatly beloved man, understand the words that I speak to you, and stand upright, for I have been sent to you now. When he had spoken this word to me, I stood trembling. Then he said to me, Don't be afraid, Daniel, for from the first day that you set your heart to understand and to humble yourself before your God, your words were heard. I have come for your word's sake. But the prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 21 days. But behold, Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me because I remained there with the kings of Persia. Now I have come to make you understand what will happen to your people in the latter days. For the vision is yet for many days. When he had spoken these words to me, I set my face toward the ground and was mute. Behold, one in the likeness of the sons of men touched my lips. Then I opened my mouth and spoke, and said to him who stood before me, My Lord, by reason of the vision my sorrows have passed on me, and I retain no strength. For how can the servant of this my Lord talk with this my Lord? For as for me, immediately there remained no strength in me, there was no breath left in me. Then one like the appearance of a man touched me again, and he strengthened me. He said, Greatly beloved man, don't be afraid. Peace be to you, be strong, yes, be strong. When he spoke to me, I was strengthened and said, Let my Lord speak, for you have strengthened me. Then he said, Do you know why I have come to you? Now I will return to fight with the prince of Persia. When I go out, behold, the prince of Greece will come. But I will tell you that which is inscribed in the writing of truth. There is no one who holds with me against these but Michael your prince. As for me, in the first year of Darius the Mede, I stood up to confirm and strengthen him. Now I will show you the truth. Behold, 3 more kings will stand up in Persia, and the 4th will be far richer than all of them. When he has grown strong through his riches, he will stir up all against the realm of Greece. A mighty king will stand up, who will rule with great dominion and do according to his will. When he stands up, his kingdom will be broken and will be divided toward the 4 winds of the sky, but not to his posterity, nor according to his dominion with which he ruled, for his kingdom will be plucked up, even for others besides these. The king of the south will be strong. One of his princes will become stronger than him and have dominion. His dominion will be a great dominion. At the end of years they will join themselves together, and the daughter of the king of the south will come to the king of the north to make an agreement. But she will not retain the strength of her arm. He will also not stand, nor will his arm. But she will be given up with those who brought her, and he who became the father of her, and he who strengthened her in those times. But out of a shoot from her roots one will stand up in his place, who will come to the army and will enter into the fortress of the king of the north, and will deal against them, and will prevail. He will also carry their gods with their molten images and with their goodly vessels of silver and of gold captive into Egypt. He will refrain some years from the king of the north. He will come into the realm of the king of the south, but he will return into his own land. His sons will stir themselves up and will assemble a multitude of great forces. One will come on and overflow and pass through. He will return and stir himself up even to his fortress. The king of the south will be moved with anger and will come out and fight with him, even with the king of the north. He will send out a great multitude, and the multitude will be given into his hand. The multitude will be lifted up, and his heart will be exalted. He will cast down tens of thousands, but he won't prevail. The king of the north will return and will send out a multitude greater than the former. And he will come on at the end of the times, even of years, with a great army and with much substance. In those times many will stand up against the king of the south. Also, the children of the violent among your people will lift themselves up to establish the vision, but they will fall. So the king of the north will come and cast up a mound and take a well-fortified city. The forces of the south won't stand, neither will his chosen people, neither will there be any strength to stand. But he who comes against him will do according to his own will, and no one will stand before him. He will stand in the glorious land, and destruction will be in his hand. He will set his face to come with the strength of his whole kingdom, and with him equitable conditions. He will perform them. He will give him the daughter of women to corrupt her, but she will not stand and won't be for him. After this he will turn his face to the islands and will take many, but a prince will cause the reproach offered by him to cease. Yes, moreover, he will cause his reproach to turn on him. Then he will turn his face toward the fortresses of his own land, but he will stumble and fall and won't be found. Then one who will cause a tax collector to pass through the kingdom to maintain its glory will stand up in his place. But within few days he will be destroyed, not in anger and not in battle. In his place, a contemptible person will stand up to whom they had not given the honor of the kingdom. But he will come in time of security and will obtain the kingdom by flatteries. The overwhelming forces will be overwhelmed from before him and will be broken. Yes, also the prince of the covenant. After the treaty made with him, he will work deceitfully, for he will come up and will become strong with few people. In time of security, he will come even on the fattest places of the province. He will do that which his fathers have not done, nor his fathers' fathers. He will scatter among them prey, plunder, and wealth. Yes, he will devise his plans against the strongholds, even for a time. He will stir up his power and his courage against the king of the south with a great army, and the king of the south will wage war in battle with an exceedingly great and mighty army, but he won't stand, for they will devise plans against him. Yes, those who eat of his delicacies will destroy him, and his army will be swept away. Many will fall down slain. As for both these kings, their hearts will be to do evil, and they will speak lies at one table, but it won't prosper, for the end will still be at the appointed time. Then he will return into his land with great wealth. His heart will be against the holy covenant. He will take action and return to his own land. He will return at the appointed time and come into the south, but it won't be in the latter time as it was in the former. For ships of Kittim will come against him. Therefore he will be grieved, and will return and have indignation against the holy covenant, and will take action. He will even return and have regard for those who forsake the holy covenant. Forces will stand on his part, and they will profane the sanctuary, even the fortress, and will take away the continual burnt offering. Then they will set up the abomination that makes desolate. He will corrupt those who do wickedly against the covenant by flatteries, but the people who know their God will be strong and take action. Those who are wise among the people will instruct many, yet they will fall by the sword and by flame, by captivity and by plunder, many days. Now when they fall, they will be helped with a little help, but many will join themselves to them with flatteries. Some of those who are wise will fall, to refine them, to purify, and to make them white, even to the time of the end, because it is yet for the time appointed. The king will do according to his will. He will exalt himself and magnify himself above every god, and will speak astonishing things against the God of gods. He will prosper until the indignation is accomplished, for that which is determined will be done. He won't regard the gods of his fathers, or the desire of women, or regard any god, for he will magnify himself above all. But in their place he will honor the God of fortresses. He will honor a God whom his fathers didn't know, with gold, silver, and with precious stones and pleasant things. He will deal with the strongest fortresses by the help of a foreign god. He will increase whoever acknowledges him and cause them to rule over many, and will divide the land for a price. At the time of the end, the king of the south will contend with him, and the king of the north will come against him like a whirlwind, with chariots, with horsemen, and with many ships. He will enter into countries and will overflow and pass through. He will enter also into the glorious land, and many countries will be overthrown, but these will be delivered out of his hand: Edom, Moab, and the chief of the children of Ammon. He will stretch out his hand also on the countries. The land of Egypt won't escape, but he will have power over the treasures of gold and of silver, and over all the precious things of Egypt. The Libyans and the Ethiopians will be at his steps. But news out of the east and out of the north will trouble him, and he will go out with great fury to destroy and utterly to sweep away many. He will plant the tents of his palace between the sea and the glorious holy mountain, yet he will come to his end, and no one will help him. At that time Michael will stand up, the great prince who stands for the children of your people. And there will be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. At that time your people will be delivered, everyone who is found written in the book. Many of those who sleep in the dust of the earth will awake, some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt. Those who are wise will shine as the brightness of the expanse. Those who turn many to righteousness will shine as the stars forever and ever. But you, Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book, even to the time of the end. Many will run back and forth, and knowledge will be increased. Then I, Daniel, looked, and behold, two others stood, one on the riverbank on this side, and the other on the riverbank on that side. One said to the man clothed in linen, who was above the waters of the river, "How long will it be to the end of these wonders?" I heard the man clothed in linen, who was above the waters of the river, when he held up his right hand and his left hand to the sky, and swore by him who lives forever that it will be for a time, times, and half a time. And when they have finished breaking in pieces the power of the holy people, all these things will be finished. I heard, but I didn't understand. Then I said, "My Lord, what will be the outcome of these things?" He said, "Go your way, Daniel, for the words are shut up and sealed until the time of the end. Many will be purified, made white and refined, but the wicked will do wickedly, and none of the wicked will understand, but those who are wise will understand. From the time that the continual burnt offering is taken away and the abomination that makes desolate is set up, there will be 1,290 days. Blessed is he who waits and comes to the 1,335 days. But go your way until the end, for you will rest and will stand in your lot at the end of the days." If this reading of the entire book of Daniel blessed you, don't just watch, become part of the mission. Help us spread God's word across the nations. Share this video with friends, family, and anyone who needs encouragement from Scripture. Subscribe so you won't miss the next journey through God's word. And most of all, let these prophecies remind you, God is in control of history. Kingdoms rise and fall, but his kingdom is forever. Comment below. What chapter impacted you the most? What vision do you want explained next? May the wisdom of Daniel strengthen you. May the God who shut the lions' mouths guard you. And may the hope of everlasting life shine upon you. Stand firm in your faith, for just as Daniel endured, so too will you. Thank you for being part of this mission.
story of how God was seeking a bride for his son. Each book is different from every other book. I'm trying to give you the keys for you to unlock it for yourself. When people try to read the Bible through from cover to cover, they usually get stuck in one of two places. They either get stuck in Leviticus, that's a favorite stopping off point when you're reading through the Bible, because suddenly all the stories stop and it's just law and ritual and things that seem a little irrelevant. The other place where people get stuck is in Chronicles. And when we read the Bible right through in our church non-stop, there were 2 or 3 poor people who had to read the first 9 chapters of Chronicles, which, if you know them, are nothing more than genealogies, family trees, just name after name after name, most of them quite unpronounceable to the English tongue. And the poor people read for 15 minutes nothing but old Hebrew names and all the begatting. It seems if they did nothing much but begat in those days. And so-and-so begat so-and-so, and so-and-so begat so-and-so, and it just goes on for 9 whole chapters. And then when you get through that, you're into what looks like a repeat performance, because you've just been reading through 1 and 2 Kings, and now you're reading the whole story all over again. And it puzzles many people. Why do we have 2 accounts of the same period of history? The kingdom of Israel. You get it first in Kings, and then exactly the same thing. And the same kings and the same events in Chronicles. Why? And we've got to begin our study of Chronicles by asking that question. Now, one of the difficulties we English have is the order of books in the English Bible, which is quite different from the order of books in the Jewish Bible. And I want to try and explain this with this chart. The Hebrew Old Testament is in the order of the first column and the second down to there. And the English order of books in the Old Testament is here and here. And we notice a number of things. First of all, they are grouped quite differently. There are 3 groups of books in the Hebrew Bible, which they call the Law, the Prophets, and the Writings. And if you remember the story of Jesus on the road to Emmaus with the 2 disciples after his resurrection, it says he took them through the scriptures and showed them everything in the Law, the Prophets, and the Writings concerning himself. That was his Bible. That was the grouping. And you notice some real changes. First of all, the first 5 books of the Bible are all separated from the rest. They are the law, or the Torah, which means maker's instructions. And the Torah, or the Pentateuch it sometimes calls, Penta means 5, and so the 5 books of the law. What we call Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, they actually call by the first words on each scroll. So Genesis is called in the beginning, Exodus is called these are the names, Leviticus is called anti-called, and Numbers is called in the wilderness, and Deuteronomy is called these are the words. But that's just because they're the first words, and they just unroll the scroll and see the first words. They know which one they've got. Then immediately they go into prophets. And they have 2 subgroups of prophets. They call Joshua, Judges, Samuel, and Kings. And Samuel is only 1 book in the Hebrew Old Testament. Kings is only 1 book. The reason being that when they only used consonants and not vowels, it only took up half the space. So of course when these were turned into first Greek and then English, they took up so much more space. It was divided into 2 books because the vowels doubled the length of words. That's the only reason. But these 4 books, they call them former prophets. And I tried to explain when we did Samuel and Kings that they're not history, they are prophetic insight into history. And Samuel was this prophet who dominated that earlier period, and during the period of the kings there were dozens of prophets, and it was the prophets who wrote the history in many cases and who interpreted it and showed them what God was doing. And then they put the later prophets, the latter prophets, into another group, and that's how we do it as well. The coloring seems to have gone a bit astray there, but anyway, forget that. Then we have the writings, and this is a kind of miscellaneous box in which everything else goes. And the Psalms are in there, though they call that book Praises. They don't call it Psalms, they call it Praises. Book of Job is in there, Book of Proverbs. Ruth comes right out of here and down to here. It is not considered a prophetic book, so it goes into the writings. And that's a big change from our Bible. Song of Songs comes in here. Then Ecclesiastes comes in, but it's called the Preacher. And Lamentations comes in, but as I told you, that is simply called How, because that's the first word in it. Esther and Daniel. Daniel is not put among the prophets, he's put in the writings. That's rather important to notice. Ezra and Nehemiah come in here. And finally, the last book in the Old Testament, in the Jewish Old Testament, is Chronicles. Only it's called simply the Words of the Days, a kind of record of history. In other words, the Book of Kings is regarded in a totally different light to the Book of Chronicles. One book is prophetic and the other's not. And we're going to see why in a moment. It means that the last word in the Old Testament in the Jewish Bible, or the Jewish Old Testament, is the word aliyah, which means go up. And the last word in Chronicles is let us go up, meaning let's go back to Jerusalem. And ever since, whenever Jews go back to the Promised Land, they say, I'm making aliyah. And aliyah means I'm going up to Jerusalem. See? And that's a much better arrangement than the English, because the last word in English is curse. And you know, the Jews will never read Malachi to the last verse in the synagogue, because they will not finish with the word curse. I'll tell you what they do with it when we study Malachi. But you see, the order's quite different. And in Luke 24, we find Jesus opening the Bible the way the Jew opened it, showing them everything in the law, the prophets, and the writings concerning himself. Now, in English, we have three quite different groupings. We call all the first books of the Bible history, and we treat Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy as history, and lump it in with Joshua and Judges as if it just carries on. And we put Ruth in there because we think it's part of the history. And we put Samuel, Kings, and we put Chronicles immediately after Kings. And that's why we tend to get the impression it's just saying the same thing over again. Actually, it isn't. When we look closely, it's a totally different kind of book. And it's not a prophetic book. But I'm afraid when you put them next door to each other in our Bible, we just think, oh, I've read all that in Kings, so I'll skip Chronicles. And we miss the message. And then it adds Ezra and Nehemiah in the history, though here it's in the writings. And then we put Esther in there as the last bit of history. And then we have a collection we call poetry, and we put in that Job, the drama of Job, Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and Song of Solomon. That's what comes next. You can see we've completely changed the order. And then finally we get through to what we think is prophecy, and we don't divide them into former and latter. We divide them into major and minor. And say we've got 4 big ones and 12 little ones. And we put Daniel in there. Now you see, it means that I'm afraid we Gentiles have misunderstood a lot of things, and we've got them in a quite different classification. And so we tend to treat Kings and Chronicles as the same kind of book. And certainly if you don't study them carefully, you could come to that conclusion. The result is that the books of Chronicles are very little known in church circles. So much so that I think there are only 2 verses that we ever quote out of the whole books. One is 2 Chronicles 7:14, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and will heal their land. I don't know how many times I've heard that quoted over the last 20 years. Have you? There was a whole musical called If My People, based on that one verse. And yet the verse was taken right out of context. And it was made to apply to England, as if I will heal their land applied to England. Or America, since the musical was written there. But the land there is the land of Israel. And there is nothing to allow us to apply it to any other land. But I'm afraid it makes a good motto, if you know what I mean. And it was lifted out of context and become one of the most popular texts of the last 20 years. It's dying down a bit now, But it really, everywhere you went, it was, if my people, if my people. The other one is from the reign of King Jehoshaphat, when he was attacked by 3 separate nations who were allied together and said, we're going to wipe out little Judah. And they marched on Jehoshaphat, and he prayed and he sought the Lord, and the prophet said, you're going to win the battle. But he was told to send singers ahead of the army into battle. It's a classic case, and so the singers, the choir, led the army into battle and sang praises to God, and the enemy fled. And that is the other verse from Chronicles that really has been picked up. It's led to the Jesus marches. It's led to all kinds of things, that if we lead with praise and send the choir out, we're going to beat the enemy. It's the other verse. But both of these verses, frankly, have been taken right out of context. And we've been singing the verse from Jehoshaphat's battle, the battle is the Lord's. The battle belongs to the Lord. We've sung a song already today with that, or was it yesterday? And apart from that, people just don't know Chronicles. It's rather sad. But I want to show you that it's a book that has a message of its own, and not just a book to pick an odd text out of, but really to get hold of. Its message is quite different from the books of Kings. There are other duplications in the Bible. There are 2 accounts of creation in Genesis, one from God's point of view, one from man's point of view. There are 4 accounts of Jesus in the New Testament, and they are all complementary. There are things in the 4 Gospels that sound just the same, but they're coming from a different angle, because each Gospel was written for a different kind of person. And the same parable in 2 Gospels can have an entirely different message. The parable of the lost sheep in Luke's Gospel, which is written for unbelievers, the lost sheep is a sinner. But in Matthew, the same parable in a Gospel that was written for believers is a backsliding church member. So even one story has a different meaning because it's in a different book. See? And therefore the same stories about David and Solomon and Jehoshaphat and Hezekiah in the Kings and Chronicles, the same story has an entirely different message. It's written from a different angle. So we'll have to try and unravel the difference. And let me just remind you of things I've said earlier. All history has an angle. You can't write history without betraying your personal interest, because you select from all that happened, you select the things you're interested in and that you think are important. And then, having given that selection, you then connect them up to show how one thing led to another. And then you evaluate, you explain or evaluate what you've written, meaning you then have to say whether what you've written about was a good thing to happen or a bad thing to happen. So a historian, step 1, selection. Step 2, connection. Step 3, evaluation or explanation. And that's when you make a moral judgment. And if you know that old history book, 1066 and all that, those moral judgments are made all the way through. This was a bad thing. This was a good thing to happen for England. And in the same way, you find the moral judgment, the evaluation in Kings is quite different from the book of Chronicles. Just to give you a clue straight away, the book of Kings concentrates on all the bad things the kings did, whereas the book of Chronicles concentrates on all the good things the kings did. It's as simple as that. Well, let's spell this out a bit and just tease it out so that you've got it. You see, again, taking the New Testament, what it says about the Old, it says the Old Testament was written as examples for us, so that we can learn from these things. So why in the book of Kings are we told about all the bad things that kings did, and in the book of Chronicles we're told about all the good things they did? You get quite a different picture. They were all sinners in Kings and they're all saints in Chronicles. Now, is this distorting history, or what's happening? Why is there this difference of emphasis? Well, now let's draw the comparison between, you can come up and look at this closer later and see the difference, but it is very striking when Kings and Chronicles are together in English Bibles, but far apart in Jewish Bibles. Let's sort of contrast. I've talked about the selection of historical events, and then their connection, so you explain how they link up, and then the evaluation that decides whether it was a good thing or a bad thing. But when we look at Samuel and Kings and Chronicles, we find first of all that Samuel and Kings between them, which were only 2 books in the Hebrew Testament, Old Testament, but are 4 books in ours, they cover a period of 500 years only. But when we come to Chronicles, we find it starts much earlier and it finishes later. Actually, that word is wrong. It should be later. It starts much earlier. It goes way back to Adam, right back through the centuries to the very beginning of the human race. And it finishes later. And it is this that is the key to the difference. Samuel and Kings finish in the exile. But here we have the return. Let us go up to Jerusalem is the last word in Chronicles. And therefore, these 2 writers had quite a different task in front of them, and they met that need quite differently. Here, there had to be an explanation as to why everything had gone wrong. But they now knew all that. Now they had to be picked up again and encouraged and sent back to build it all up again. This was written quite soon after the events. Most of this was written long after the events. Here we have a political history for the most part, but here we have a concentration on the religious history of the same period. This is from a prophetic viewpoint, but this is from a priestly viewpoint. This covers, of course, kings in the north and the south. But Chronicles, covering the same period, never mentions a single northern king. He is not interested in the north at all. That's a huge difference. Maybe you never spotted that. But above all, here, he concentrates on the human failings of the kings that led to disaster. But here, he wants to concentrate on the divine faithfulness. He's going to play down the royal vices, and he's going to play up the royal virtues. Again, we'll see why when we tease out the book. Therefore, this has a very negative view of the kings. This has a very positive view for a very real reason. It's not that he's trying to change history. It is a selection that's going on. And while he selects all the bad things the kings did, he selects all the good things they did. Same kings, and they were a mixture of good and bad. Here, the emphasis is moral, and the key word is righteousness. Were these kings righteous or not? But here, there is an interest more in ritual again, in the temple and the sacrifices. And the interest is in spiritual rather than moral issues. And so we have here a prophet writing and here a priest writing. And the difference of viewpoint is enormous. Well, now those are some of the differences. And we must now ask, so what is happening? I think one of the best ways is to ask what Chronicles is leaving out that Kings and Samuel put in. Clearly, a great deal is, because there's quite a different proportion of chapters to each king. For example, over there, in Samuel and Kings, Saul has about 1/6 of the book. Here, hardly anything. Half, at least. Sorry, Samuel I'm talking about. No, I'm talking about Saul. David, here is about 2/3 of what he has there. Solomon, about half. The divided kingdom, again about half. So what's going on? What is he leaving out? Let's be specific. Number one, he leaves out entirely Samuel's part in choosing kings. That's not mentioned. Secondly, he leaves Saul almost out altogether. He only records Saul's death. That's because he wants them to see kings in a good light. So most of Saul's reign is just not there. However, David, there's an awful lot there, but what is missed out? All his struggles with Saul, missed out. His 7-year reign in Hebron is missed out. His many wives are missed out. Absalom's rebellion is missed out. And above all, the whole episode with Bathsheba that was the turning point in David's reign is not there. Now, this is all very significant. The man is deliberately playing up the kings. If he can say something good about them, he does. If he can't, he doesn't. And even with those he says good things about, if there are bad things, he misses them out. Fancy missing out David and Bathsheba, which was such a turning point. But it's not there. David here appears in a wonderful light. So does Solomon. There's not a word here about his many wives or the idols that were brought into the palace. His faulty relationship with God is not mentioned. His failure to deal with the high places, the pagan temples, not mentioned. And then when we get to the divided kingdom, nothing about the kings in the north, because they were all bad. And when we come to the kings of the south, we find that he really gives a lot of space to the good kings, like the boy King Josiah and King Hezekiah, but the bad kings, hardly there at all. Now, the man is not prejudiced. He's doing it quite deliberately. He has certain interests. There are common threads that run right through that were not prominent in Saul's reign, but were in David and Solomon's and some of the kings of Judah. First of all, he is only concerned with the royal line of David, only concerned with kings that are in that royal line. Since none of the kings of the north were, they don't belong. This is a history of the royal house of David and no one else. Saul is not in it because he wasn't in the royal line of David. He was of the tribe of Benjamin. Northern kings are not in it, but one man who is in this book, who's not in those, is a man called Zerubbabel. And Zerubbabel was the royal line of David who came back from Babylon exile. And it was in him that their hopes for the Messiah lay, because he was the only one who came back from David's line, Zerubbabel. And so he spends, when he goes through the genealogy, there's half a chapter on Zerubbabel's family tree, which is something quite new. He is not idolizing royalty, but he is what I would call idealizing royalty, painting it in a very favorable light. He doesn't highlight their differences, or rather their weaknesses. Now, is there a particular aspect of these good kings' reign that he concentrates on? Yes, there is. He is concerned with their attitude to two things, the ark and the temple. And he concentrates entirely on what they did about the Ark of the Covenant and a temple to house it as the place where God could live among his people. And all that it says about David is how he brought the Ark to Jerusalem, his desire to build a temple, his preparation for it, gathering the materials, drawing the plans, how he arranged the services of worship and the choirs and the choir masters. All this is in great detail in Chronicles. And yet it's almost skipped over in the book of Kings and Samuel. So he's got a real interest in the place of worship. And Solomon, of course, pretty well all he tells us about him is how he built the temple that his father David couldn't, and how he prayed at the end when it was dedicated, and how the glory of the Lord came. All about that underground quarry. You remember no sound of hammer or chisel was heard because he was quarrying it underneath a hill in the cave. That's in Chronicles. It's not in Kings, actually. It's all over here. And these kings, in the writer's eyes, were good because they helped to keep the worship of the temple going. Well, now a priest would say that, wouldn't he? A prophet would concentrate. You see, a prophet would concentrate on the bad things they did that got the land into trouble. But the priest says he built a temple for us. He got the choirs organized. He got the worship. And David was known to them as the man who was the worship leader and the psalm writer and the man who wanted the temple built and so on. So we've got David and Solomon, and almost everything we're told about is what they did about the temple. When we pass on from Solomon, and there is the great civil war, and the 10 tribes in the north split from the 2 tribes in the south, he's only interested in the south because that's where the temple is. That's where the priests of God are, and that's where the royal line is kept. So he's staying with this interest, and he picks out really only 8 good kings, 5 of them outstandingly good. And the 12 bad kings in the south he ignores. So again, you can see his mind, can't you, ticking. And he picks out Asa, and King Asa put away the idols in Judah and Benjamin, and removed his queen mother from the palace because she was secretly worshipping an idol in her bedroom. And Asa made a covenant with the Lord, and he enriched the temple with silver and gold. So in a priest's eyes, he's a good man. Got it? Then Jehoshaphat, who was Asa's son, he sent the Levites throughout Judah, teaching in every city, teaching them the law of God. And he got victory over Ammon and Moab when he said, the battle is not yours but God's, and he sent the singers into battle. But I'm afraid he did something bad. He married Ahab's daughter. And in fact, through that alliance, a terrible thing happened. Jezebel's daughter, Athaliah, came south and made a bid for the throne and killed all the royal seed of David, all the princes. She murdered. She wanted the throne. But that's when a priest, notice that, a priest, Jehoiada, kidnapped the youngest prince, Joash, and hid him and produced him later. Said, this is your rightful king. And Athaliah got her comeuppance. But you see, once again, there's a priest who played a crucial part in preserving the royal line of David. You don't read about that in the other. Then Joash, he repaired the temple. And he did good things. And then Hezekiah, we know about. He reopened and repaired the temple. And they celebrated a Passover with great joy. And his reforms, which only have a few verses in Kings, there are 3 chapters about him over here, because he reformed the worship and put the temple right. And then Josiah, he talks about him a lot, that boy king who again, sprinkling the temple, found the book of the law and put back into the temple all the proper services and the feasts that they should have been observing. Now, all these kings opposed idolatry. That's why in the priest's eyes they were good. And the interesting thing is this: idolatry was one of the things that bad kings got into that the prophets denounced. But when the Jews came back from exile, they never again got into idolatry, and they haven't to this very day. They learned their lesson in the exile, and never again has a Jew worshipped an idol in the last 2,500 years. Interesting. And of course the priest was thrilled to bits with that, because whereas the prophets tended to concentrate on immorality and injustice, the priests were most worried about idolatry. Now, all this is telling us something. The book ends, actually, Chronicles ends, with Cyrus the Persian overcoming the Babylonians and sending the Jews back to their land to rebuild the temple. Now, I want you to bear in mind that the people for whom this person is writing are the people coming back from exile, who've been born in a foreign land, who've never seen a Jewish temple, and who aren't ruled over by a Prince of David. And what he's doing is to tell them 3 things. I call them the 3 R's. He wants to give them roots, royalty, and religion again. The first thing they need to know as they come back to their own land is who they are. They need to know their identity. Let's move on. I'm over here now. The returning exiles, first of all, needed to know who they were, that they had roots. And those roots went far back into history, right back to Adam. But he had to re-educate them all over again and take them right through from Adam, right through to where they are now. If you've read Alex Haley's books, Roots, or seen the film, that's a fascinating story about how a black man in America wanted to find out where he came from, who he was, and how he found his way right back to a river in West Africa, where a young boy called Kunta Kinte had been kidnapped and sold as a slave to America. And he found his roots and went back to the village and found people there, still there, to whom he was related. And he suddenly felt, I know who I am. I know where I've come from. I know where I belong, where I fit into history. Now, the Jews needed this when they came back. They needed roots going right back. They needed to know that they had a line that God had been controlling all the way down, that they belonged to God, and that He'd singled them out from the whole human race and selected Abraham and so on. And that's why Chronicles went right back to the very beginning. They needed roots. They needed identity, a rooted people. The second thing they needed was to know that they were a royal people and that they had their own king and they had their own royal line. They were going back to the land, and He wanted them to start thinking about the king again, to restore the kingdom of Israel. So they were going to need leadership. And He's telling them, you're not just a group of people, misfits. You are a royal priesthood. You are a royal people. You have a king, and the royal line has been preserved. And you're going to be a kingdom again. And the third thing that He wanted to convey to them is not just their identity and not just the matter of leadership, but the purpose for which they existed as a people. And that purpose was religious. The most important thing that made them what they were was the fact that they were God's chosen people, and that their worship of God was absolutely central to their identity as a people. And so when they went back, the first priority was to get a temple built and to get worship reestablished. It's interesting that of those who went back, nearly over 10% of those who went back were priests, which is a far higher proportion than the number of priests in the whole people. So why did more priests than anybody else go back from Babylon, the end of the exile? The answer was they had the right reason for going back. Many of the others had settled down, got businesses going, and prospered, were very comfortable. But the priests had no temple. And they wanted to get back to reestablish the worship of God, to get the temple up. So more priests, when Zerubbabel called for volunteers to offer to trek across the Arabian desert and go back to that land that they'd never seen and build a temple, it was the priests who said, we'll go. And out of all proportion to their numbers, the priests led the way back, and their leader was a man called Joshua. Well, now you can see these three purposes of Chronicles very clearly. You are a rooted people. You have a history. You belong. This is your family tree. It's a very special family tree. And you are a royal people. You're a kingdom. And you're going to have a king. In fact, you've got one. We've preserved the royal line. And Zerubbabel is the prince. And you are a religious people. And you need to get back to worship. That is the most important reason for going back. And therefore the first thing you must get built is a temple where you can praise God, because that's the reason you're called a Jew. Jew means praise God. And that's the whole reason for you going back there, to establish God's name in His city again. So the book was, if you like, a sermon for that returning remnant. And we know they were very discouraged when they went back. It wasn't a very exciting business. They had to struggle to make a living. They were very poor. They were very slow building the temple. It needed 2 prophets, Haggai and Zechariah, just to keep them going. But we'll see that when we study those books. But he had to get this instilled into them. God must come first in your life as a people. That's why we're going back. We're going back to be God's people, not just to have a home of our own. Alas, Israel today is largely there because they wanted a home of their own where they could be safe. They did not really go back to establish themselves as God's people. Never forget 3/4 of an hour I had with the President of Israel in his palace. And at the end of the talk he said, well, I'm an agnostic. I don't really believe in God. This was President Navon of Israel. And I said, but this is the land where God did His greatest miracles. He said, well, I can't believe it. I was sad. You see, it was so important that they went back as a religious people, as God's people, and that the temple should be the very center of their return and the very center of their hopes. That's why he wrote it. And you can see the message is quite different from the prophetic message. This is what happened to get you into this mess. It's too late now to say all that. They're in the mess. Now he's wanting to lift them up and say, let's go back and start again. And so he inspires them with these wonderful stories of the past. Let me just quickly bring the threads together. Christ himself picked up all these threads in himself. That's why Matthew begins with the genealogy of Christ. In fact, Luke takes it right back to Adam. It's almost as if you hear the genealogy all over again, because Christ had roots. Christ was and is a Jew. He's still a Jew. And it's important that we know that he was not a rootless person. He came from these roots. Furthermore, he was the fulfillment of their royal line. He was the son of David. And he could inherit that throne twice over. Through his father, he had a legal right to it, and through his mother, a physical right to it, because they both came from the line of David. And he was also the fulfillment of their religious hopes, the temple, because he actually became the temple. It says, the Word was made flesh and tabernacled among us. He said, destroy this temple and I will raise it up in 3 days. He saw himself as the focus of their worship. So these three things you see coming together in Christ. I haven't time to show how it all comes together in Christ. But now these three things are passed on to us. And we inherit the 3 R's because we have been grafted into Jewish roots, so their genealogy is ours. When I read Chronicles 1-9, I'm reading my family tree, because I'm now a son of Abraham. I've been grafted into their roots. Their roots are mine. These are my forefathers. And when you're a Christian, your true roots are now Jewish. They're even more significant to you than your family tree physically, because that family tree will disappear at death. But it's the Jewish family tree that is now your genealogy. In Christ, you inherit the blessings of Abraham. You're part of this. You're now a rooted people, but your roots are Jewish. The olive tree is Jewish. And we are now royal people. We are a royal priesthood. You are princes and princesses. You should walk down the street like a prince or like a princess. I've said that to many hangdog Christians whose heads were down. And I've said, lift your head up. You're a prince. You're a princess. Behave like one. There are too many others not behaving like one. You behave like them. We are the royal family, and we're going to reign over this world with Christ. It says he has redeemed from every kindred and tribe and tongue men for God, and they shall reign on the earth. We're going to reign. We're the royal family of England, and we should behave that way. Puts a responsibility on us. But you've got royal blood in you now. It's the blood of Jesus. And we have become the temple. Don't you know your bodies are the temple of the Holy Spirit? Don't you know that you corporately in the church are the temple of God, wherein he dwells? So that these 3 things which the people returning from the exile needed to be taught, we need to claim because they are ours. We are a rooted people, a royal people, and a religious people. We're the temple of God. And yet there is a difference. We are still in exile. We haven't come home yet. We're strangers and pilgrims in a foreign land. Though you may say, but I'm English and I live in England or whatever, you don't belong here. Your citizenship is in heaven, and you're a stranger. And people will regard you as that. Somehow you're a misfit. Brother, they think gypsies are misfits. I tell you, the world thinks every Christian is. And Jesus said they hated me, so they're likely to hate you. We don't belong. It's amazing how quickly your friends drop you. Somebody once asked the great Baptist preacher, C.H. Spurgeon, it was a girl, and she'd just been converted, and she said, how many of my old friends should I give up now? He said, don't bother. He said, they'll give you up quick enough. See, and I'm afraid that is true. And you find yourself more closely related to people who are not your physical relatives, but who are your spiritual family, aren't you? You've got to work hard to keep your relationships with your unbelieving relatives, because now you belong to a new family, royal family, and you're the temple of God. What you do with your body, you're doing with the temple of God. It's one reason why I've noticed so many people give up smoking when they become Christians. Now, there's nothing in the Bible against smoking, and it won't take you to hell. It only makes you smell as if you've already been there. But suddenly, I've known Christian men say, what am I doing to the temple of God? I'm making it smell, I'm making it dirty, and I'm shortening its life. They give it up. When you see your body as the temple of God, get a different idea about it. See? So we are now inheriting the teaching of Chronicles. And I hope that's helped to make it not just a dull old bit of history, but made it a different book. It's got quite a different message to Kings, quite a different message. And a message of hope for the future and what we're here for, why we're here, and how to find our true identity as the people of God in a strange land. Well, let's read that book in a new way and get some new lessons from it.